life cast of the belly. So this is some of the materials that we're going to be using to do a life cast. We got distilled water. That makes a huge difference when mixing up the alginate. We did get our alginate from Smooth On. This is the skin safe type, the AlgiSafe. Got a bag right there. We do have gloves because it is going to get a little messy. And then afterwards, for our support, after the alginate sets up, we do have our plaster bandages right there. So that'll kind of help with the mother mold, kind of hold everything together. And once we get the mold off, everything's dry, we'll make our actual positive mold on the inside of the alginate. We're going to start with lightweight hydrocal. We're going to use that first. And then that would be our splash coat, and that would get the detail pulled out of the alginate. Now after that, to give it some rigidity, we're going to use actual plaster of Paris. And we're going to use, I've used in the past, some burlap. We can also use jute. We're going to mix all that up and stuff with the plaster stuff, and that'll be kind of like a mesh. It'll be kind of like rebar and cement. It'll be kind of the same thing here with this to give it some stiffness. And then of course we got our drill with our mixing paddle, and we got our bucket. So that we're going to do outside as we mix this, but that'll be the last step. So there's all of our stuff all laid out, ready to go. We do got a drop cloth on the floor, and we do got the table all, the chair all prepared. Okay, today we're going to be doing a pregnant belly life cast. I've seen this done several ways. A lot of people just use plaster bandages, go right over stuff. That gets the general size and shape, however it doesn't get the detail. So we're going to do it the traditional way of using alginate. We're going to mix up the alginate. We're going to start about here, work our way down. This is going to include the breasts. We're going to do that, the belly, get that all covered. Then we're going to take the plaster bandages, go over to firm it up so that the alginate, after it sets up, doesn't fall apart when we tip it off. We're going to fill it with plaster and make a mold out of that. So on this setup, we're going to mix up our alginate. We got a very short work time with it. It says approximately 5 minutes is the pot time, so that means you can just kind of work with it. But having done this before, you got to work really fast, get mixed up, consistency, get it applied evenly, and it only takes about 8 minutes to completely firm up. So meanwhile, while that's getting firm, we'll get all of our bandages ready to go and start getting all that applied. Okay, we got our alginate mixed up. Want to get kind of a consistency of pancake batter. This is mixed up in a ratio of 1 to 1, so 1 part water versus 1 part powder. Follow whatever brand you're using, follow their instructions. So now we're going to start applying this and get it all set up. We don't need it super thick for this. We just need a good coverage. It's already starting to get kind of tacky, so it's definitely starting to gel. Rubbery feeling to it already, so we're going to get ready to start getting the plaster bandages put on. So we're feeling already, so it's already, for the most part, pretty well set up. There's not really any spots that are still still tacky. It seems pretty rubbery, so. Okay, we're gonna start getting plaster bandages ready to go. Okay, so we've been putting plaster bandages on, been working down to get the coverage that we need. I use warm water so things will set up a little bit faster. It's already starting to get up, not quite hard, but it's definitely starting to set up. So we'll wait till this sets up just a little bit more here, and then what we'll be able to do is we'll be able to have her kind of tilt forward a little bit, kind of flex her muscles, and then we should be able to pull the whole thing off, the what I call the mother mold and the alginate on the inside, so we'll have our negative life cast. We'll be able to pull that forward, and then we can go on to actually making our positive mold out of that. So it's getting there. When you're applying the plaster bandages and stuff, you know, I run a strip down the middle and then kind of work different pieces around there. And then anywhere you're going to have like a weak spot, which like on here it's going to be the side where like the breasts are, between the breast and the belly. I put extra in there just so that when this tips forward it doesn't crack. And you want to keep working them into one another. When you're doing this, they don't have to be super wet. The moisture in the plaster stuff will help kind of get the next bandage and stuff wet enough to kind of mix it in and stuff. But it's going pretty good. It's actually starting to get kind of hard. So everything's good. So we'll get ready and onto this. This is dried pretty good and stuff. You can use a blow dryer, you can use a heat gun or something if you want to help kind of speed up the process, which is what we ended up doing. So now we're going to have her kind of sit forward a little bit. We're going to try to pull this off. Basically, we want to try to keep the alginate inside the plaster mold, because if the alginate falls back onto her, it's going to rip apart, and our mold's going to be shot. So here we go. Okay, you just want to kind of flex your muscles. Yep, there you go. There you go. Get here where we can. If anything hurts or anything and stuff, if anything's pinching or something, just say so. To the towel here. Yeah, it's stuck to the towel. That's not what we want to have in there. The alginate starts shrinking up too. That's another thing. So as it dries, the drier the alginate gets, it'll start shrinking. So, okay. Yep. You want to start leaning forward a little bit? That's fine. That's fine. Okay, there. Good. Okay, yep. We got it. Slide it down. There is our negative mold, if you can see that right there. Has all the details. Now we can start mixing up our plaster and start putting our splash coat in. Okay, we have the mold all set up, ready to go. It looks pretty good. Mixing up the hydrocal. And this mixes 2.5 parts to 1 for consistency. This is very, very kind of soupy. That's where it gets the detail. It's a little better. It's not as gritty. Add just a little bit more here. Just a little bit more consistency here to it. We're going to use this as our splash coat when we do this. And this will get all the detail. Should be able to get a lot of the skin texture and stuff coming from the alginate mold. And then to give it the rigidity and give it the thickness, we're going to actually use plaster of Paris on top of this. There are a few little imperfections in the alginate mold, and that will show up in the final plaster cast. But once the plaster is all hard and everything's cured, we can actually go back, we do some sanding and stuff, and we'll do some adjustments, and we'll take care of that when it's all said and done. And now it's just about getting everything in there, and the splash coat on, get everything coated evenly if at all possible. Got the plaster all poured. We used some of the plaster bandages actually to help stiffen it up. The burlap was just too thick of a weave to do that, but got filled in with the hydrocal first, and then the plaster of Paris, the bandages, kept kind of mixing back and forth to get a good consistency. So now we just have to wait for it to dry, and then we can release the mold and see what we got. This is the finished cast that we pulled out of the mold. Came out pretty good. Few little specks, you know, here and there. Well, actually, we have to get cleaned up, but I mean, overall, detail is pretty good. Nothing cracked. I was really worried on the sides here, so if that was going to crack across there, and it didn't actually. That's not cracked. That's actually just where it copied all the detail. So, pretty happy with this. We're going to see what we end up doing with it, if we're going to display it or paint it or what we're doing. But this turned out really, really well. So.